morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who joins us from around the world. We're so glad you're here.
This is Andrew and Renee. Welcome to the Stack series.
It is wonderful to be back with you all.
Today we are exploring the widening gap between how long we live and how healthy we stay, the difference between lifespan and health span.
And, this is a topic that I think gets to the core of what we all hope for, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's the silent wish behind every birthday candle.
It really is. You have that moment, the cake comes out, everyone sings, and someone inevitably shouts, "May you live to be 100."
Right? And everyone cheers. It's the goal.
It's the ultimate goal, but nobody ever adds the fine print. No one says, "May you live to be 100," provided you can still, tie your own shoes.
Or remember your grandkids' names.
Or get off the toilet without a team of assistants. It's that fine print, that quality of life that we just seem to gloss over.
And it's the fine print that matters most. We've spent, the last century being completely obsessed with the number on the birthday cake?
Totally.
And look, we shouldn't downplay the achievement. We've done incredible things with that number. But we haven't paid nearly enough attention to the quality of the life that fills those years.
It's like we treat the number itself as the victory, regardless of the condition of the player at the end of the game.
That's a great way to put it. The final score is all that matters, not how battered and bruised you are when the whistle blows.
It's the classic quantity versus quality debate, but, the stakes couldn't be higher. We're talking about our own lives.
Exactly.
So today, we're really going to try and unpack why our medical system is, fantastic at keeping us alive, but frankly, kind of terrible at keeping us healthy.
It's a paradox.
It is. We're going to look at what some researchers are calling the sickspan, which, by the way, sounds absolutely terrifying.
It's not a pleasant term, but it's an accurate one.
And then on the optimistic side, we'll look at the frontiers of science, things like medicine 3.0 and Sanalytics. Stuff that sounds like science fiction, but is rapidly becoming science fact.
It's where the real hope lies.
But before we get to the zombie cells and the futuristic stuff, we need to ground ourselves in the here and now. So set the scene for us. We're living longer. That's a fact, right? We hear it all the time.
It is an undeniable fact, and it's something we should genuinely pause and appreciate. The achievement is, it's staggering.
How staggering are we talking?
Well, if you go back to the mid-19th century, say around 1860 or 1900, the global life expectancy was somewhere between 35 and 40 years.
35 to 40. I'd be considered a village elder right now.
You'd be well into your twilight years, yes. A respected patriarch.
Wow.
But today, we're looking at a global average of around 72 to 78. That is a massive, massive leap. In many developed countries, hitting 80 is just par for the course. It's expected.
That's effectively doubling the human experience in the span of a century and a half. That's insane. How did we even do that? Was it just, better food?
It was a combination of things, but primarily, we conquered the acute killers, the things that get you fast. We cleaned up our water, which basically eliminated diseases like cholera and typhoid that used to wipe out entire towns. We improved sanitation. We figured out how to drastically reduce childbirth mortality for both mothers and infants.
Which was a huge killer.
Huge. And then, of course, the big one, the advent of antibiotics and vaccines. We just got very, very good at stopping infectious diseases that kill you quickly.
Okay, so we stopped the fast killers, but I can hear a but coming. There's a big but in your voice.
There's a massive but. The problem is, while we've done an incredible job of extending the timeline, we haven't necessarily extended the good part of the timeline. We are living longer, but we are not necessarily living better. We've sort of traded one set of problems for another. We've entered an era where we face a new challenge, one our ancestors didn't really have to worry about because, frankly, they didn't live long enough to experience it.
And that new problem is the sickspan.
That new problem is the sickspan.
It just sounds like a bad horror movie title. Is that a clinical term now?
It's becoming one. It's gaining traction because it's so descriptive.
Yeah.
It refers to that period of life spent in decline, in dependency, burdened by chronic illness. The delta, the gap between when you die and when you stop being truly healthy.
And the mission for this conversation, then, is to figure out why that gap exists, why it's growing, and maybe ask the big question, is it inevitable? Do we just have to accept that the last decade or so of our lives is going to be miserable?
That is the trillion-dollar question. Is this a bug, or is it a feature of a long life?
Okay, let's unpack this, though, because I think people, myself included, we use all these terms interchangeably. Longevity, lifespan, health span. You see them on supplement bottles and in marketing all the time. But they're not the same thing, are they?
Not at all. And the confusion actually hurts our ability to fix the problem. If we don't define what we're aiming for, we'll never hit the target.
So let's define the terms. Start with the easy one, lifespan.
Okay. Lifespan is the easy one. It's the concrete number. It's binary. You're born on one date and you die on another. The time in between is your lifespan.
Simple. Objective. It's what goes on the tombstone.
Exactly. Here lies Andrew, 1985 to 2085.
Hopefully.
Or 2105. Let's
Yeah.
aim high. Okay, so that's lifespan. What about health span?
Now it gets complicated. Health span is subjective. It's qualitative. The general idea is it's the period of life you spend in good health, free from chronic disease and disability that impacts your daily function.
But good health feels a bit slippery, doesn't it?
Yeah.
My version of good health at 70 might be running a 10K. Someone else's might just be living without constant pain. If I have a bad knee but I'm still happy and engaged, has my health span ended?
You've hit on the major challenge in the research. It's a huge issue. One study I saw actually found 113 different definitions of health span in the scientific literature.
113. Wow. Okay, so there's no consensus.
Not a firm one. It's messy. But generally, for our purposes today, and for the way most of this research is framed, it means full function. Full function.
Can you do the things you want to do? Are you cognitively sharp? Are you physically capable of engaging with the world in a meaningful way? Or are you fundamentally limited by your biology?
So it's really about agency. It's, can I still be the author of my own day?
That's a perfect way to phrase it.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you have the third term, longevity.
The buzzword. I feel like I see this word plastered on everything, from protein powder to face cream. Take this for longevity.
It has absolutely become a marketing term.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's just used as a synonym for lifespan, just living a long time. But in the actual field of longevity medicine or geroscience, it has a more specific meaning.
Which is?
It refers to exceptional aging. It's not just about getting to 80. It's about getting to 90 or 100 while maintaining a high degree of function. It's about studying the outliers who seem to defy the normal aging process, the people who are still skiing at 95.
Okay, so we've got lifespan, the total years. Health span, the healthy, functional years. And the difference between them is the sickspan.
Precise.
So let's get to the, I guess, the depressing part. How bad is this gap? Are we talking about a few months of feeling a bit crummy at the very end, or are we talking about something more significant?
We are talking years, and the data is sobering. A major 2024 study that looked at World Health Organization data from 183 countries, tracking everything between the year 2000 and 2019, painted a very clear and, frankly, a very concerning picture.
Okay.
So between 2000 and 2019, global life expectancy rose from about 66.8 to 73.4 years.
That sounds like great news. That's almost 7 years of extra life added to the global population in less than 2 decades.
On the surface, it is fantastic news. It's a triumph of public health and medicine.
Yeah.
But healthy life expectancy, what the WHO calls HALE, or health-adjusted life expectancy, it lagged way behind.
How far behind?
The global average gap between lifespan and health span is now 9.6 years.
Wait, say that again? 9.
9.6 years.
Nearly a decade. So you're telling me that on average, across the entire globe, a human being spends the last 10 years of their life in a state of poor health.
That is what the data tells us. 10 years of managing disease, dealing with some form of disability, potentially losing independence, being in and out of the healthcare system.
I don't know why that number is so shocking to me. I guess I knew it was bad, but almost a decade.
And here's where it gets even more concerning. In just those 2 decades, from 2000 to 2019, that gap widened by 1.1 years.
So it's getting worse.
It's getting worse. That's a 13% increase in the sickspan. Essentially, for every year of life we add through modern medicine, a significant portion of that added year is now lived in poor health. We are adding years, but they are sick years. We are extending decline.
That's terrifying. It's like we're stretching a rubber band and we're celebrating how long we can make it, but the rubber band is getting thinner and weaker and more frayed the more we pull it.
That is the perfect analogy. And as you'd expect, this isn't happening the same way everywhere. The experience is not uniform across the globe.
Right, and this might be a dumb assumption, but I assume it's worse in lower-income countries with less access to healthcare.
That's what you would think. It seems logical. But the data shows the opposite. The gap is actually widest in high-income nations.
Really? How can that be? We have better hospitals, better drugs, better nutrition, theoretically.
We have better rescue care. That's the catch.
Rescue care.
In high-income nations, our medical system is incredible at managing decline. It's incredible at rescuing you from the brink of death. So you get a diagnosis, say heart disease or type 2 diabetes, and instead of dying from it relatively quickly, which might happen in a nation with a poor healthcare system,
You live with it.
you live with it for 10 years, 15, maybe 20 years. You're kept alive by a cocktail of medications, procedures, and constant medical supervision. Your lifespan is extended, but you're not healthy. You're a chronically ill person being managed.
So the sickspan is actually a perverse product of our success. We're so good at stopping you from dying that we inadvertently just keep you sick for longer.
In a way, yes. We've become victims of our own success. Take the United States, for example. It has the largest chronic disease burden in the developed world, and it has a gap of 12.4 years.
12.4 years. Stop for a second. That is the entire childhood of my daughter, from birth until she's in middle school. That is the amount of time the average American is now expected to spend in a state of decline.
That is the statistical reality, yes. It's a decade plus of medical dependency and functional limitation.
That hits hard. 12 years it's a lifetime. It's not some rounding error at the end.
It is. And to add another layer of complexity, there's a fascinating gender paradox here, too.
Okay.
We all know that globally, women live longer than men. That's a well-established fact. But they have a larger lifespan gap. On average, it's about 2.4 years wider than it is for men.
So women get more years on Earth, but a larger percentage of those extra years are spent in that zone of chronic illness.
Correct. They live longer, but they spend more time dealing with non-communicable, non-fatal diseases. Things like severe arthritis, osteoporosis, dementia, frailty. It's a significant quality of life issue.
Whereas men
tend to die more quickly from acute, catastrophic events. A massive heart attack, stroke. They live shorter lives, but on average have a shorter period of morbidity at the end. Women endure.
So this brings us back to the central question, why? Why is this happening? You said our medicine is reactive. Is that a fundamental flaw in how we've built the whole system?
It's less a flaw and more an evolution that hasn't caught up to our new reality.
Yeah.
To really understand this, we have to look at the history, at the transition from what we can call medicine 1.0 to medicine 2.0.
Okay, give us the history lesson. What's medicine 1.0?
Medicine 1.0 is basically the longest era of human medicine. It's everything from Hippocrates in ancient Greece right up until the 19th century. And it was based on, well, observation, a lot of guesswork, and frankly, superstition.
Right. Bad humors, evil spirits.
Exactly. There was no scientific method. If you got sick, it was because your humors were out of balance, or you were being punished by the gods, or you sinned. The treatments were things like bloodletting.
Leeches, prayers, and maybe some mercury if you were really unlucky.
Essentially, it was completely helpless against infection. If you got pneumonia or a wound got infected, you just hoped for the best. Survival rates were abysmal.
Okay, so that's medicine 1.0. Then what happened?
Then, around the mid-19th century, everything changes. We get the germ theory, Louis Pasteur, Robert Koch. We start to understand that invisible things, bacteria, viruses, are what cause disease. And this realization births medicine 2.0.
And medicine 2.0 is our current system.
It is the current standard of care. It's evidence-based. We have randomized controlled trials, advanced diagnostics like MRI and CT scans, antibiotics, sterile surgery. It's a miracle.
I mean, medicine 2.0 sounds pretty great to me. It saved my life when I had my appendix out as a kid. Without it, I'm dead at 22 from peritonitis.
And for that, for acute illness and injury, it is the single greatest achievement in human history. No question. If you get hit by a car, if you have a raging bacterial infection, if you need an organ transplant, you want medicine 2.0. You want that trauma surgeon, that infectious disease specialist. But its foundational flaw is that it is fundamentally reactive.
Reactive. So it waits for the house to be on fire before it calls the fire department?
It waits for the house to be fully engulfed in flames. And the fire department of medicine 2.0 is amazing at putting out the fire. They can save the foundation, maybe a few charred walls, but the house is ruined.
And they don't do any fire prevention.
Very little. They don't check the faulty wiring. They don't clear the dry brush from around the property. They just wait for the 911 call. Another analogy people use is that medicine 2.0 is like pulling weeds only after they have completely taken over the garden.
Right, you're not tending the soil.
Exactly. You're not looking at the health of the soil, the root causes, before the weeds even have a chance to sprout. You're just reacting to the visible problem.
That makes perfect sense. We wait until you have the heart attack to treat the heart disease. We wait until your blood sugar is sky high to diagnose the diabetes. We wait until the tumor is visible on a scan to begin cancer treatment.
And because our treatments at that late stage are so powerful, we are excellent at extending lifespan, at delaying death. but we're very poor at extending health span, at preventing the decline in the first place.
We are, as you said, managing decline.
We are managing decline. We are propping people up for years, even decades, in a state of managed sickness.
That phrase, managing decline, it just really sticks with you. It feels so passive, so bleak. But it leads us right into this massive debate that's happening in the scientific and ethical communities. Because if we are just extending the sick years, if we are just managing decline for 12 years, are we even doing the right thing?
That is the absolute core of the failure of success versus compression of morbidity debate.
Okay, let's break those down. Failure of success sounds like the ultimate pessimist's view.
It is. It's the argument put forth by some demographers and bioethicists. They argue that by extending life in a state of poor health, we are simply increasing the total burden of disease on society.
How so?
We're creating a society of what they grimly call feeble consumers of medical resources. We are keeping people alive, but they aren't contributing, they aren't thriving, they are just consuming care, time, and trillions of dollars. The success of keeping us alive is actually a failure because the quality of that life is so low and the cost to everyone else is so high.
That's a dark way to look at it.
It is.
So what's the alternative view? The compression of morbidity. I'm guessing that's the goal.
That is the optimistic view. It's the holy grail of aging research. The idea was popularized by a Stanford physician named James Fries back in the 1980s.
And what's the idea?
The goal isn't just to live more years, but to squeeze that period of sickness, the morbidity, into a very, very short window right at the very end of life.
So the ideal scenario is what? Playing tennis at 89.
Playing tennis at 89, feeling great, having a glass of wine with your family at dinner, going to bed, and then dying peacefully in your sleep at 90.
So you basically square the curve. You stay on a high, flat line of good health for your whole life, and then you just drop off a cliff at the end.
Exactly. You maximize the health span, and you compress the sick span into days or weeks, not years or decades. That is the goal.
That sounds lovely. I mean, who wouldn't sign up for that? But is it realistic? Because there are some very prominent, very loud voices arguing that maybe we should just accept a natural limit. Which brings me to that famous, or maybe infamous, essay by Ezekiel Emanuel, Why I Hope to Die at 75.
Yes, this is a very controversial but very important part of the debate. Ezekiel Emanuel, he's a prominent bioethicist and oncologist. He was an architect of the Affordable Care Act, a serious person.
And his argument is what?
He argues that after age
75. I have to say, that feels kind of young to me now. My own father is 76 and he just got back from a hiking trip. I know so many people in their late 70s who are crushing it.
And Emmanuel would acknowledge that exceptions exist. Of course they do. But he's a public health guy. He argues that if you look at the statistics at the population level, there is a slow constriction of activities that happens for almost everyone.
No constriction.
You lose creativity, your physical limitations mount, you can't run as fast, you can't hike as far, you can't think as quickly. And he makes this very interesting and I think very provocative distinction between happiness and meaningfulness.
Okay, what's the difference in his eyes? Because I would think if I'm happy, my life is by definition meaningful.
Not to him. He points to data that shows a U-shaped happiness curve. People report being happiest in their youth, then it dips in middle age with all the stress, and it goes back up again in their late 70s and 80s.
Right, I've seen that.
But Emmanuel argues that while these elderly people may be happy, sitting in a chair, watching the sunset, doing a crossword puzzle, their lives lack what he defines as meaning.
Ouch. That feels incredibly arrogant. Who is he to define meaning for someone else?
Well, for him, meaning is tied to active contribution, to work, to creativity, to mentoring the next generation, being an active, engaged participant in shaping the world around you.
So if you're not producing, your life isn't meaningful.
He essentially argues that if you are just consuming oxygen and resources but not creating or contributing in a significant way, is that a life worth artificially extending with modern medicine?
So what's his solution?
He advocates for stopping all medical interventions at age 75. No more cancer screenings, no more antibiotics for pneumonia, no pacemakers, not even a flu shot. Just let nature take its course.
I have to be honest, I find that argument almost offensive. Who is he to tell a 76-year-old that their happiness isn't meaningful? If finding joy in sitting in the sun and holding your grandchild's hand makes you happy, that feels pretty damn meaningful to me.
It is an incredibly controversial stance for exactly that reason. It imposes an external, and you could argue an intellectual's definition of value onto someone's internal, subjective experience.
It's like saying a library isn't valuable unless people are constantly writing new books in it. Just holding the existing knowledge is valuable, just being a grandparent is valuable?
I think that's a fair critique.
Hmm.
But let's try to understand his fear. He's afraid of what he calls the American immortal archetype.
The American immortal.
The person who refuses to let go, who demands every surgery, every tube, every experimental drug to stay alive for one more week of misery, often at the immense financial and emotional cost of their family and society. He sees that as a deeply undignified way to end a life.
I get that fear. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be kept alive on a machine just for the sake of a heartbeat. But to set an arbitrary date of 75?
And the rebuttals to his argument are very strong. They call it the case for thriving. First, as you said, 75 is completely arbitrary. Your biological age and your chronological age can be wildly different. Second, there's the natural fallacy. People argue that fighting aging is unnatural. Well, it was natural to die of an infected tooth at 40 in 1860. All of medicine is an attempt to alter a natural outcome. If you wear glasses to see, you are altering a natural outcome.
That's a great point. And what about the happiness thing? I can't get over that.
Well, that's a philosophical stance, not a biological one. And the data on the U-curve suggests people are genuinely happy. Humans are incredibly adaptable. We find joy even with limitations. To dismiss that happiness as not meaningful is, as you said, quite paternalistic.
And I feel like I have to bring this up. We can't ignore the cost of this sickspan. It's not just about the person living it. It's about the people who have to take care of them. If we just dismiss Emmanuel's point about resources, we're missing a huge piece of this puzzle.
This is the hidden cost, the part of the equation that is almost never talked about, the caregiver burden. We talk about the 12-year gap in the U.S. as a statistic, but that gap is filled with human labor. It is filled by 43.5 million unpaid caregivers in the U.S. alone.
43.5 million. That's a huge chunk of the population. That's more people than the entire population of California.
It's a shadow workforce. And I want to pause on who these people are because the demographics are stark. About 75% of these caregivers are female.
Of course.
The average age is 49.2. So let's make a picture. You're a 49-year-old woman. You're likely at the peak of your own career, or maybe trying to get back into the workforce after raising kids. You might still have teenagers at home, or a kid in college you're trying to support financially.
You're the sandwich generation, squeezed from both sides.
You are squeezed between the needs of your growing children and the declining health of your aging parents. And then one day, you get the call. Your mom has had a fall, or your dad gets a dementia diagnosis, and your life changes overnight.
And when we say unpaid, we're not talking about small change here. This has real economic value.
The estimated economic value of this unpaid care is around $470 billion a year.
$470 billion.
To put that in perspective, that is more than the global sales of Walmart. It's an invisible, untaxed, unsupported economy running on the backs of middle-aged women. If these 43 million people stopped working tomorrow, the American healthcare system would collapse instantly.
And the toll it takes on them?
It
can't just be financial.
Oh, the health toll is immense. 40% of caregivers report being in high-burden situations. We see significantly higher rates of depression, anxiety, chronic stress, and sleep deprivation. And ironically, we see higher rates of chronic disease in the caregivers themselves. The stress of the sickspan is contagious. It infects the entire family.
And I imagine with families being more spread out now, people moving for jobs, it's getting even harder.
You're right. Long-distance caregiving is on the rise. The average long-distance caregiver lives 450 miles away from their loved one. So now you add the financial cost of flights, the guilt of not being there, the impossible logistics of trying to manage doctors and prescriptions over the phone.
So the debate isn't just a simple personal question of, do I want to live to 100? It's a much bigger societal question. Can the system and can my family support me living to 100 if the last 15 years require constant intensive care?
Precisely. We cannot just look at the individual in a vacuum. We have to look at the entire ecosystem, which finally brings us to the frontiers, to the hopeful part of this conversation.
Okay, good. I need some hope.
If Medicine 2.0 created this gap, this situation where we keep people alive but dependent, then we need a new operating system to close it. We need to stop managing decline and start actively preventing it.
Enter Medicine 3.0. This is a term I've heard a lot recently, popularized by people like Dr. Peter Attia. How is this fundamentally different from the pulling weeds approach of Medicine 2.0?
Medicine 3.0 is a complete paradigm shift. It moves from being reactive to being proactive, personalized, and preventative.
Okay.
It's often described using the 5P model: precision, prevention, personalization, participation, and prediction.
That's a lot of P's. Let's break that down. What does that mean for me practically when I walk into a doctor's office in this new world?
It means the entire goal of the interaction changes. The goal is to intercept disease decades before the first symptom ever appears.
Decades.
Decades. Medicine 2.0 waits for you to have a heart attack at 60. Medicine 3.0 looks at your cholesterol particles, your inflammation markers, and your genetic risk factors when you're 30 to ensure you never have that heart attack in the first place.
It's tending the soil. Finally.
It is tending the soil. It's focusing on the 4 major chronic diseases that kill most people in the developed world. They're sometimes called the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Which are?
Heart disease, cancer, neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's, and metabolic dysfunction like type 2 diabetes. Medicine 3.0 says, I don't care if you don't have these diseases yet. I care about your risk of getting them in 10, 20, or 30 years.
And you mentioned root causes before. We're not just talking about eat your veggies and get some exercise, are we? It's deeper.
It's much deeper. And it starts with a crucial distinction between what is normal and what is optimal. This is a huge part of the 3.0 mindset.
Okay, explain that.
In Medicine 2.0, you go for your annual physical. The doctor runs your blood work, they look at the results, and if your values fall within the reference range on the lab report, they stamp it normal and send you home.
Right. Everything looks normal. See you next year.
Exactly. But here's the problem. What is that reference range based on? It's based on the statistical average of the population that goes to that lab.
And in a country like the U.S.,
Yeah.
where the majority of the population is overweight and metabolically unhealthy, average is not good. Average is pre-diabetic. Average is on the road to heart disease.
So being normal in a sick population just means you're declining at the same rate as everyone else.
You nailed it. Medicine 3.0 isn't interested in normal. It targets optimal ranges for health and resilience. For example, Medicine 2.0 might say a fasting glucose of 99 is normal because it's just under the cutoff of 100 for prediabetes.
Right. Medicine 3.0 says, no, that's a fire alarm. Your system is stressed. We want you in the low 80s. It's about optimizing for health, not just avoiding a diagnosis.
Okay, so Medicine 3.0 is the strategy, the new operating system. But to really do this, to actually prevent aging at its root, don't we have to understand the mechanics of it? Like, why do we actually age? It's not just bad luck or wearing out.
You're right. Aging isn't magic. It's biology.
Yep.
It is a physical, measurable process that happens inside our cells. And in the last decade or so, science has had a revolution in understanding this. We've identified the hallmarks of aging.
The hallmarks of aging. I love that phrase. It sounds like a secret society. It gives us a map, right? A target.
It gives us a map. If we know the specific mechanisms that are breaking down, we can develop targeted interventions to fix them. There are 9 major hallmarks that are widely accepted, though the list is growing. To keep it simple, you can group them into 3 categories: the damage, the response to the damage, and the final result.
Okay, let's start with the damage. This is the basic wear and tear on the system.
Right. Think of your body as a complex machine that's been running for decades. First up is genomic instability.
Okay.
Every single time one of your cells divides, it has to copy its entire DNA genome, billions of letters of code. And over time, errors creep in. Think of it like making a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy.
Eventually, the image gets blurry and distorted.
Exactly. The DNA breaks, mutations accumulate, that's damage number 1. Second is telomere attrition.
The shoelaces.
The shoelaces. Telomeres are the protective caps on the ends of your chromosomes, like the little plastic tips on shoelaces. Every time a cell divides, those caps get a tiny bit shorter. Eventually, the shoelace starts to fray, the DNA becomes unstable, and the cell can no longer safely divide.
Got it. What's third?
Third is epigenetic alterations. This one's a bit more abstract, but maybe the most important. If your DNA is the hardware, the instruction manual for your body, the epigenome is the software. It's the reader that tells each cell which pages of the manual to read. It tells a liver cell to act like a liver cell and a skin cell to act like a skin cell.
And as we age?
That software gets corrupted. The reader gets scratched. The cells start to forget their identity. A skin cell might start expressing genes it's not supposed to. This is a huge driver of aging.
The software gets glitchy.
Okay. And the last one for damage.
Loss of proteostasis. Your cells are filled with millions of tiny protein machines doing all the work. When these proteins get old or damaged, they're supposed to be cleared out and recycled. Proteostasis is that quality control system. As we age, the recycling plant breaks down.
So the trash piles up.
Trash piles up. Old, misfolded proteins start to clump together. And these clumps, these protein aggregates, are a major driver of diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Wow. So that's the damage. The DNA is broken, the shoelace caps are worn off, the software is corrupted, and the cellular trash is piling up.
Right.
That's a grim picture. What happens next?
Next, you have the antagonistic hallmarks. This is the body's response to all that damage. It tries to help, but over time, the response itself becomes part of the problem.
Antagonistic sounds bad. Why would a response be bad? Because a response that is helpful in the short term can become harmful in the long term if it stays switched on. First is mitochondrial dysfunction. The mitochondria are the power plants of your cells. When they sense all this damage, they can go into overdrive, but they also become less efficient. They start leaking toxic byproducts like exhaust fumes.
Free radicals.
Exactly. Then there's deregulated nutrient sensing. Your body has pathways that sense the availability of food. When you're young and growing, these pathways are on full blast. Grow, grow, grow. As we age, and with our modern diet, these pathways get stuck in the on position. The body is constantly in growth mode when it should be in repair and maintenance mode.
And that leads to things like insulin resistance.
Precise. And the big one in this category, the one we really need to talk about, is cellular senescence.
Ah, the zombie cells. I've been waiting for this. This is the one that gets all the headlines.
It does. Because it's such a powerful and creepy metaphor. But it's accurate. So when a cell gets too damaged, maybe its DNA is broken from that genomic instability we talked about, it has a safety mechanism. To avoid becoming cancerous, it stops dividing. It pulls the emergency brake and enters a state of senescence.
Which is a good thing, right? A cell with broken DNA should not be making copies of itself. That's how you get a tumor.
Exactly. Transient or temporary senescence is a biological miracle. It's crucial for stopping cancer before it starts. It's also important for wound healing. But the problem is when these cells don't get cleared away by the immune system, they persist. They hang around.
The zombies.
The zombies. They don't die, but they're not really alive and functional either. They just linger in the tissues. And here's the absolute key. They are not passive bystanders. They aren't just harmless retirees sitting on the cellular porch.
They're active.
They are active saboteurs. They start to secrete a toxic cocktail of inflammatory molecules. This is called the SASP, the senescence-associated secretory phenotype.
SASP sounds nasty.
It is. Think of it like a single rotten apple in a barrel of healthy apples. That one rotten apple starts to release gases and ethylene that cause the apples touching it to start rotting too.
Oh, wow.
Senescent cells do the same thing. They secrete these pro-inflammatory cytokines, enzymes that chew up the healthy tissue around them, and other toxins. They damage the healthy neighboring cells and can even turn them senescent.
So one zombie cell literally bites its neighbors and turns them into zombies too.
That's the essence of it. It spreads aging and inflammation like a slow-burning infection through the tissue.
And this leads to the final stage, the result.
Yes, the integrative hallmarks, which are the end result of all this accumulated damage and faulty responses. You get stem cell exhaustion. Your body's reserve troops, the stem cells needed to repair tissues, either die off or become senescent themselves. Your body loses its ability to heal.
And the other one?
Altered intercellular communication. This is basically the SASP going systemic. It leads to chronic, low-grade body-wide inflammation. It's a condition that scientists now call inflammaging, and this inflammaging is thought to be the common soil from which almost every major age-related disease grows.
So, we have the map, we know the hallmarks, we know these zombie cells are a major driver of the sickspan. The obvious question is, can we get rid of them? This is where the therapeutics come in, right? Senolytics.
This is one of the most exciting frontiers in all of biology right now. If the problem is these lingering zombie cells poisoning the neighborhood, the logical solution is to selectively eliminate them. And that's exactly what senolytics are designed to do. They're a class of drugs that can induce apoptosis or cell death in senescent cells while leaving healthy cells alone.
So it's like a smart bomb, a sniper that takes out only the bad guys.
A perfect analogy. They target the specific survival pathways, they have acronyms like SKPAs, that these zombie cells uniquely rely on to stay alive against all odds.
And what are some examples? Are these real drugs?
They are. One of the most famous combinations first discovered at the Mayo Clinic is dasatinib, which is actually an existing leukemia drug, plus quercetin, which is a natural flavonoid found in things like onions and apples. Used together, this D plus Q combo has shown incredible results in animal models.
When you say incredible results, what are we talking about? Mice living an extra week?
Much more than that. We're talking about old, frail mice that, after treatment, start to look and act younger. In these studies, old mice treated with senolytics showed improved fur density, better kidney and heart function. They could run further and faster on treadmills. And yes, they lived significantly longer.
But the key is they were healthier for longer, right? It wasn't just extending their sickspan.
That's the critical point. It compressed their morbidity. They were more youthful and vibrant until the very end.
And I've heard about another one, fisetin.
Yes. Fisetin is another natural polyphenol found in high concentrations in strawberries. It seems to have broad senolytic activity and is generally considered safer than the pharmaceutical drugs, so it's getting a lot of attention. The strategy with these drugs is also really interesting. It's often hit-and-run therapy.
Hit and run. What does that mean?
You don't take a pill every single day? That could be dangerous. Remember, transient senescence is good. You need it for wound healing. So the idea is you take a powerful dose for a few days to clear out the accumulated trash, the zombies that have built up over months or years.
You do a spring cleaning.
Exactly. Then you stop, you let the tissue heal and regenerate. Then maybe you do it again 6 months or a year later. It's a periodic purge.
That is a totally different model from the take this statin every day for the rest of your life approach.
Completely different. And then there's the other approach, which is slightly different, xenomorphics.
Xenomorphics. Sounds like something out of Transformers.
These are the modulators. Instead of killing the zombie cell, a xenomorphic acts like a muzzle or a gag. It suppresses the SASP. It stops the cell from secreting all those toxic inflammatory molecules.
So it's behavior modification for cells. The message is, okay, you can stay, but you have to be quiet and stop bothering your neighbors.
That is exactly it. And some of the most famous drugs in longevity research, like rapamycin, which is an MPOR inhibitor, and metformin, the common diabetes drug, are thought to act in part as xenomorphics. They turn down the volume on those toxic secretions. Rapamycin in particular is the current gold standard. It has been shown to extend the lifespan of every single organism it's ever been tested on, from yeast to worms to flies to mice.
So where are we with all this for humans? Is it just really healthy, long-lived mice? Or can I go to my doctor and ask for a senolytic prescription?
We are moving from mice to humans, but we are definitely not at the pharmacy stage for aging as an indication. Not yet. Clinical trials are underway for specific diseases where senescence is known to be a major driver. Things like idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which is a deadly lung scarring disease, certain kidney diseases, and even Alzheimer's.
So the idea is if they work for those specific diseases, the application will eventually widen to aging itself.
That's the hope. But we have to be cautious. Biology is incredibly complex. Off-target effects are a real concern. This is the cutting edge.
But we shouldn't let people think this is all just about future drugs. There are things we can do right now, aren't there?
Absolutely. We shouldn't forget that. Things we've known about for a long time, like vigorous exercise and periods of caloric restriction or fasting, also powerfully modulate these same pathways. They induce a process called autophagy.
Autophagy, which literally means self-eating.
Yes. It's the body's own innate recycling and cleanup program. When you exercise hard or you fast for a period, your cells sense that resources are scarce. So they start looking around for junk old, misfolded proteins, damaged mitochondria, and they break them down and eat them for fuel. It's the body's natural way of cleaning the house.
So going for a hard run or skipping a meal is basically a natural xenomorphic.
To a very real degree, yes. It keeps the system clean and prevents the buildup of this cellular garbage in the first place.
This all sounds incredibly promising. It really feels like we are on the verge of a true medicine 3.0 revolution. But I always come back to the ripple effects. If we actually pull this off, if we close the gap and people start living to 100 or under 10 in genuinely good health, what does that do to society?
This is the implication section, and it is huge. It changes everything. First, the healthcare system itself has to be rebuilt from the ground up.
How so?
Medicine 3.0 requires massive amounts of data. We're talking continuous monitoring from wearables, regular deep biomarker analysis from blood tests, genetic testing. It's a data-driven science.
The patient becomes a partner in their own health, not just a passive passenger. I'm not just listening to my doctor once a year. I'm bringing them my data constantly.
Exactly. It's participatory medicine, one of the 5 Ps. But there's also a powerful economic necessity here. We literally cannot afford the status quo. The cost of the sickspan of managing chronic disease for decades in an aging population is going to bankrupt every developed nation on Earth.
So this isn't just a nice to have, it's a must do to avoid economic collapse.
We must pivot from treating disease to preserving health just to keep the lights on. Economists call it the longevity dividend. If you keep older people healthy, they stay in the workforce longer, they pay taxes longer, they consume more, they contribute more. It's an economic boom.
But my biggest worry is, who gets access to this?
That is the number 1 ethical concern, inequality.
Right. Will Medicine 3.0 and Senolytics be available to everyone, or will they be a luxury good for the wealthy? We already know the rich live longer than the poor. This new technology could widen that gap into a chasm.
You could have a world with a new class of the rich immortal and everyone else. The gap is already wider in high-income nations, and this could create an even wider gap within those nations.
It's the plot of every dystopian sci-fi movie, the movie Elysium. The elites live in perfect health forever, and the masses are left to suffer on a dying Earth. It's a terrifying thought.
It is. And it's why we have to have public conversations now about ensuring that these interventions, especially the low-cost behavioral ones and the cheap repurposed drugs like metformin, are democratized and accessible to all.
And what about the meaning of life stuff we talked about with Ezekiel Emanuel? If we are living to 100 or more in good health, do we have to completely rethink our life script?
We have to rip up the old script entirely. The 20th century model of learn, work, retire, die is based on a much shorter health span.
Retirement at 65 makes absolutely no sense if you have 35 more healthy, vibrant years ahead of you.
None at all. You might have 2 or 3 different careers. You might go back to university at 70 to study philosophy. You might start a new family. It changes everything.
Family structures would change completely. You could easily have 5 generations of a family alive at the same time.
It redefines what it means to be human, really.
Yeah.
It fundamentally changes our relationship with time itself. But the final thought that I always come back to, the one that I think sums up the entire mission, is a quote often attributed to John F. Kennedy.
What's that?
The goal is not just to add years to life, but to add life to years.
Adding life to years, I like that. It's not about the number on the cake. It's about the energy you have to blow out the candles.
It is the ultimate goal, to compress that morbidity so tightly that we are vibrant, active, engaged, and contributing right up until the very end, to make this sickspan a relic of a primitive medical past, just like we made dying of cholera a relic of the past.
Well, this has been quite a journey. From the frankly terrifying statistics of the sickspan to the microscopic war against zombie cells, and finally landing on the philosophical question of what we do with all this extra healthy time, it is a lot to process.
It is, I think, the most important conversation happening in modern medicine. And it's one that every single one of us needs to be a part of, because its outcome will affect every single one of us.
Before we wrap up, thank you to all our partners, sponsors, and scholars who made this podcast and the research possible. We're truly grateful for your support.
And to our listeners, thank you for being part of this journey with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and follow Stack Studios for more informative content. And support us on Patreon.
Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and let the search for wisdom guide you forward. Have a great day.